Well, now to domestic violence in Nueces County. Hundreds of cases are now in the system at the district attorney's office. Some are prosecuted successfully with a conviction, but what happens when the victim decides to recant their outcry? As Rudy Trevino found out, prosecutors are now using a new legal tool that's helping them prosecute abusers.
These are all of the active domestic violence cases right now in my court, and that's all of these drawers, these four, these two drawers.
Active cases waiting to be brought before a court for trial. Now with a new legal tool under the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure called forfeiture by wrongdoing, Nueces County prosecutors are coming after domestic violence defendants.
The offender out there who thinks that he's going to get away with something because his victim is reliant on him or dependent on him, it's not going to work. Nueces County is not going to put up with that anymore.
Case in point, that of 37-year-old Jose Cardenas.
It was a dating relationship. It had been going on for a few years. She called police and reported that he had strangled her. There were visible red marks.
But when time came for trial, the victim was nowhere to be found.
We tried calling her. We sent an investigator out. She tried to subpoena her several times. And so then what we did is we pulled the jail calls.
Recorded phone conversations between inmates and outside calls are all legally recorded and can be used as evidence. That, prosecutors say, is what helped in this case.
We saw that he was calling her from other people's ID numbers in order to try and hide it. And we were able to show the judge that he was, by his actions, influencing her not to show up for court. So at that point, the judge ruled that her statements could come in.
The jury sided with prosecution evidence and found Cardenas guilty of domestic violence and sentenced him to 10 years in prison.
It's exciting to hear that our community, in terms of our district attorney's office and the Family Violence Bureau and the prosecution that's happening, was able to look at this evidence and really understand the dynamic that was happening and then present that to our jury in a way that was going to hold this person accountable.
Forfeiture by wrongdoing means even if a victim of abuse decides not to testify against his or her abuser, the district attorney will have this legal tool to prosecute the offender. Rudy Trevino, 3 News.